take opportunity. We just did a 5-month campaign for Tap My Katamari. We've learned a lot, and I want to take the opportunity to share some of the best practices that we got over those last 5 months with you. So, without further ado, how to not idle your soft launch. Let's see if I get this working. I think, do I point it the wrong way? Oh, this wrong. Okay, this is the wrong one. All right. Okay, got it. Big green button. That makes it easy. So a bit about myself. As a hobby, I've been making games for 16 years. The last few years, I worked at Relic Entertainment on Company Heroes. I worked at DNA on a couple of mobile games, Script Battle Tactics and Military Masters. And I'm currently at Bandai Namco, where I'm just actually today we're just worldwiding Tap My Katamari, working also on a couple other super secret projects that we can't talk about yet. So, the slides seem to be in the wrong order. Okay, I will improv. So for those of you, who here knows what an idle game is? Just show of hands, curiosity. Okay, so I'll provide some explanation. They're kind of really silly games. All you do is a simple action, let's say tap. That action will generate some sort of return, let's say a coin, and then you'll reinvest that coin to do that action better. And you kind of rinse and repeat. Idle games do something a little bit interesting as well. They'll have a reset mechanic. It's kind of weird. You play the game for like 5 days and then you actually reset back to 0. But the reward for that is that you get the super valuable, amazing currency that makes you even stronger and more effective at that action that you were previously doing. So yeah, that's kind of Idle Games 101. Why they matter? I think that I tried to Google this guy's name, so I'm not going to try to pronounce it and disrespect him. But this is a really good article. Why they matter? Because idle games are really the quintessential metagame. They do it really well. You can have a really solid core game, and that will engage players for a given amount of time. But it's really going to be the progression that kind of engages them and retains them. And I think it's really for any designer out there, making an idle game will teach you a lot about how to really execute that well. Just real short, my lessons are quick and continuous progression loops. So you might think, giving the player a continuous empty carrot, never really having those 2-week gaps. Once you start getting 1 or 2 week gaps, they start to really disengage at that point, unless you have something else to keep them. So yeah, great article, highly recommend it. Also on the Pocket Gamer website. So yeah, just shout out to Pocket Gamer. So I think that brings us to the question at hand and what I really want to talk about, and that's how to run an effective soft launch. Of course, this is just based on what we've learned. It's our experience. I'm sure many of you guys have your own experiences and your own lessons, and it might differ, it might not. And if it does, I encourage you to come talk to me. I'd love to hear about it. So just as an overview, we're going to talk about 3 points. It's 15 minutes, so I'll try to keep it short. And I'm trying to figure out the right words. So the first point is solidify your core. And really that just means build the leanest product possible. If you inflate it before you soft launch, you'll make your life hell. The next point is target results. Everything you do should have a purpose. And the worst thing I see is where anyone, especially designers, because we're bad at this, are like, well, let's put something in because it's fun or it's cool. Be more specific than that. Is it going to improve your retention? Is it going to improve your art download? What's the actual purpose of this thing that you want to add? And finally, engage players. And there's been a lot on engaged players in the media. So rather than kind of preaching that you guys should engage players, I want to talk about how we engage players and what kind of success we saw from that. So just on the point of solidified core, I think this is a really, when I showed my colleagues this, they were kind of like, well, what is that? A couple things here. I think when you build a game and you go into soft launch, you really want to have the leanest product possible, as I mentioned. And there's a couple reasons for that. I think the first most important reason is when you do release that product, you want to make sure that the data you're getting is relevant to your core, that you're actually able to get insight. You start adding and inflating features that aren't part of that core, and you'll make that a little bit more difficult. You're adding effectively noise to your data. And the second part is you're taking risks. So if you decide to put in, big social feature, a big tournament for competitive play, those are risks to me. I mean, you might argue that those are part of your core, but at the end of the day, you're making a decision on less data. When you do soft launch, all of a sudden you start getting feedback from your players, you start getting the metrics for the game, you start seeing if retention needs improvements or if your monetization needs improvements. So in my opinion, when you are deciding to do your product schedule or your release schedule, if you decide to commit on features that are not part of the core, you are taking a business risk. And to me, it's an unreasonable business risk. It's assuming you're going with a soft launch campaign. I will say the caveat to that, there are reasons why you wouldn't want a soft launch and you want to do immediate launch. for marketing publicity. Case in point, Fallout Shelter, they timed it with their E3. So there are reasons why you might not want to soft launch, but if you are, I highly recommend solidifying your core. So just again, reiterating these points, utilize your data. You'll get a lot clearer data when you use a streamlined core, and you'll reduce the noise, and you're not taking risks on it. The next thing that we did a little bit, we did actually very thoroughly, was we set targets. And it's not, I mean, I assume everyone out there is doing it. And just to kind of, for those that maybe aren't, it means looking at what you're trying to achieve, looking at your investment in the product. So if you spent, let's say, $1 million, what is your expected ROI? Subtracting the cost, but really defining that in metrics. So your retention, your ARPDAU, any other key KPIs that you want to look at to make sure that you meet your expected results. So really have those defined. And I actually recommend doing a low, mid, high, so you kind of have a sense of where you could be, where you are, and have some degrees there. And then when going back to the previous point I said in the overview, every time you make a change, you should focus on hitting those targets. If you're putting a change and it's not target specific, don't put the change in. Simple as that. If you're ever questioning if there's something in your game and it doesn't have a purpose, then take it out. That's just my philosophy, and I think it works really well. And I want to show about, we talk a little bit more as a case study as Tap My Katamari. We'll show how that actually works. So first I'll say, we had a pretty good launch. We launched back in January. We had a pretty good launch. Our retention were where we wanted to, our retention metrics where we wanted them to be. Our monetization was a bit weak, specifically our DAO. We were a little bit below a target. We were on the lower end. And there's a couple reasons why we concluded this was the case. Players weren't very clear on what to purchase in the game. They weren't clear on the value of the purchases. So I think it's really important whenever you make a product to really outline what it is that the player can buy and why they should buy it. And I think this ties into the next 2 points, which is conversion satisfaction. And I think a lot of people talk about this. The term is delight. I like satisfaction. Every time you make a purchase, it should be fun, right? It should be engaging. I always, I kind of yell at my colleagues sometimes because, at other games, because it's like, well, I'm paying, let's say, $1 to speed up something. And yeah, I get something immediately, but I'm effectively buying time. And I would rather buy something that's cool in the game, like a new unit or a weapon or something that's, maybe a little more tangible to me, something that's a little more long-term. So really making sure that every purchase in the game is fun. That's kind of that point. And then value proposition. And again, this has been talked about. I don't want to talk about too much in this presentation, but we definitely had a weak value proposition. As I mentioned, in an idle game, you have this reset cycle. So we were effectively, all our in-app purchase monetization kind of was focused on, it actually reset every time you reset the game. So it kind of sucked. You buy something, and then, a day later you have to reset and lose it. So that probably wasn't a very good value proposition for players. So we definitely identified those points that we fixed them. We created a little more permanency. We still had consumables. We definitely had a lot of clarity, just explaining things, partly through the tutorial, partly through visuals, and partly through just adding a little more clearer text and UI. And in conversion satisfaction, there was a lot of negative points in the game where the player was getting negative punishment, or negative reinforcement rather. So we removed that and just focused on positive experiences. You're always getting something to make you better. You're never avoiding a punishment to pay, or paying to avoid a punishment rather. And the results were great. So over that 5-month campaign, we increased our DAO by 260%. So I think that was great. Huge shout out to the team. And with that, our in-app purchase conversion went up 230%. And again, it was really looking at a lot of key things, understanding our game, using our intuition, using our different data available to us, and as I'll mention later in this talk, using engaging players. So yeah, we saw a lot of success with that, and we're quite happy with where we're at right now going into worldwide. So the next point is engage players, and again, I want to talk more about how we did it, and I don't know if this is going to work. So, IT, is this going to work? No? Okay, so it's not going to work, but this was a really cool video about this guy. That was, for those who don't know, there are services out there that allow you to effectively set up criteria to search for players. Let's say you want idle players, and you want people who play mobile games twice a week, and whatever, they're males between the age of 10 and 15. You can send this to these companies, and they'll, they have this whole pool of users that will then run these tests for you. So you can actually give your game to players, see the result, and actually see what they're doing. And this sounds like a really simple thing. It's really simple that anyone should be doing. It probably takes no more than an hour to set up, and it will give you a lot of insight. So for example, this guy's he gave us a lot of input on our first-time user experience. There are certain things that he understood, there's certain things that he didn't understand. And of course, take that with a grain of salt. It's qualitative data, so and you're not getting numerous amounts of data, and if you are, then you have a huge team that's kind of, anyways. So you're probably just getting a small sample size, so take it for what it is, don't knee-jerk, and say, oh, we should change this right away. Triangulate the data, of course. But it was super valuable. It gave us insight that data just can't give you, and it gave us insight very quickly. So a day turnaround for a test. So we can make a change, put it live, and a day I can get the feedback back to the player. So, for those who are interested, I think one website, I don't know if we're allowed to advertise, I don't know if it's advertising, but usertesting.com is what we use, and we've been pretty happy with that. So another big engagement point for us has been we've set up forums. And this is a common thing, set up forums, okay, everyone does that. But one other step that we did there, every time we updated the game, we had a community icon pop up into your HUD. It was a permanent icon that, well, permanent in the sense that it's permanent, it's on the main HUD. Until you clicked it, then it would be removed. But this directed players to the forums. And I'm sure some people kind of got angered by this because it sucks when you're playing a game and you get to take it to another screen. But during our soft launch, we were willing to accept that potential negativity because the benefit is what we believe. We effectively believe that benefit would outweigh the potential cost, especially during your soft launch. Well, worldwide, we're going to reconsider this approach, but regardless, this has been a huge source of feedback for us. It's been very specific, to the point. It's given us a lot of, it's actually, in a lot of ways directed our game updates. And I can't recommend this enough, but really make sure that you create features that direct players to your forums. If they're just finding it organically, I think you guys know that, especially in soft launch, it's really hard to get that organic traffic. You're probably not going to get as many responses as you like. So yeah, we've had a number of, I think we've had over 100 topics in the 5-month period. Players providing things that they like, that they don't like. Every time we do an update, we can get direct feedback. Our approach has always been to be open and honest with players. If we kind of messed up something, we were like, okay, we messed up, but we're working on it, and that seems to work really well for us as well. And on the whole, again, as I said, this has been really beneficial to us. So 2 ways that you could do for your game right now: use user testing, have forums, and read them. I don't know if this is going to be, if we're going to be as engaged once we go worldwide, because assuming that the volume blows up, and it's going to be very difficult. You might need a full time for people to do it, but yeah, it's definitely something I'd recommend. So just to wrap up, I'll make this quick. So solidify your core. So really build a lean-managed product, because you really want to get your core right first. It's going to be the biggest driver of your retention of the game and your engagement. And then look at adding your features. You'll start getting data, and you'll start getting an idea. Well, should I make a feature that's going to improve my retention because that's where I'm weak? Then yeah, if so, then you can do that. You're making more informed decisions. Target results. Don't be willy-nilly. You're paying money to do something. It's not our money usually because we're employees, but let's say it was your money. Think twice about it. Like, be smart about it. Make sure that everything you do has a purpose. I think a good analogy for a function like airplane. An airplane engineer, everything on the plane has to be considered because of the physics of, the laws of physics apparently dictate that if it's too heavy, it will hit the ground. So same kind of idea. Don't put something into the game if it's just fluff. And then engage players. So hopefully 2 things you can do from this conversation or relieve. Use user testing. Highly recommend it. Takes a day to turn around, and engage players through forums, but funnel them to that forum. That's it for today. Thank you guys for listening to my talk. No questions, you guys. Come on. All right. Thank you. Oh, yeah, Christoph. I can tell your voice.
Okay. So how do you set up targets for retention?
That's actually a good point. So we're looking at market trends for the genre. So what we can expect, let's say, if it's idle games, looking at idle games, what their performance is, using Tap My and other forms of data as well. And then actually, I think there's been a couple of GDC talks on idle games that provide some metrics as well, so I kind of give you some insight. But yeah, generally look at what your market or your competing market is and use that to set your benchmark. And obviously, you got to be cost. If you're spending twice as much as your competitors, then you're going to have to perform twice as good, not better. Any other questions?
This one at the back.
Oh, sorry, I can't see. This is a big light.
Yeah.
So one in the back.
So, Jason.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which countries did you choose for the soft launch in, and what was your strategy behind that?
Okay, so we chose to soft launch. Originally, we chose to soft launch in Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. Well, first point, we needed a large enough sample size. So that brings us to about 100 million users. Second point, to do with, I forget the second point actually. I think it was because we, I think the Canada, oh right. Just to notice like the point, I can't remember. Yeah, so I'm not going to Okay, any other questions? Yeah, right here.
When doing a soft launch, you mentioned that everything has to have a purpose, and you have to track everything. Okay. I was just wondering, during a soft launch, do you guys prioritize which targets you have to hit first? So, say
Yes.
for example, attention or monetization, etc.
Yeah, so again, using those benchmarks that we said, we looked at where it's weakest, and doing some analysis, you can determine where your best bang for your buck's going to be. So you could do the analysis like increase retention by 10%, it's going to result in X% ROI increase. So that's basically what we did. So if our retention was low and it was below our target, that's what we focused on. If our monetization was low, that's what we focused on. And then also looking at kind of what's not recorded in the data, looking at the user experience. Definitely a lot of quality of life improvements as well, just to improve things overall. Yeah, question.
Okay, what UA channels were you using before the soft launch?
That's probably a question for our marketing guy, which is sitting right here. UA channels, I believe we use Facebook and App what? App 11, yeah. Any other questions, guys? No? You guys are doing great. Oh, right here, sorry. Sorry, those big lights. If anyone can see the question, I think there's a hand over here.
You mentioned redirecting to the forums. Can you describe a little more detail of the context in which that redirection was presented from the game?
Yeah, so what happens is whenever we pushed a server-side client out, we could trigger this icon that would appear on the HUD. So when the player loaded the game for the first time, they would have this pulsing icon that would say, hey, click me. And when they click it, it would take them to the forums. Again, the first time they probably did this, it might have been a little bit frustrating. So again, there's definitely a cost to that. But again, in our analysis, that frustration was, it's a small target. So that frustration was outweighed by the value they provided.
You're saying the icon didn't say forum, it was just something to click?
Oh no, it was like a community. Yeah, it was iconized so that it was like, yeah, it was actually a Reddit icon. So yeah, and then once you click it, it's removed. So it's only a one-time action. Trying to reduce that frustration as much as possible. Any other questions? All right, thank you guys. You've been great, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.